Hi guys, Shane here, Flight Simmer. Welcome to another video. So today's not a test drive video. We're actually going to do a bit of a walkthrough of my first flight in VR in Xplane 11 for the public beta. So it just released a couple of days ago, and perfect timing. Santa Claus left a nice little Oculus Rift underneath the Christmas tree this year, so I thought I would share this moment with you guys. So I will say this though, the video, it's a little bit different to film VR stuff, so bear with me. Not up to the normal standards, but it's a little bit different. But I will say that VR is definitely the way of the future for anything gaming and flight sim, and I was actually saying to Patrick from the Flight Sim deck the other day, is actually he said it, he made the comment actually, it's just like stepping into the Matrix. It is insane. So the footage that you're going to see today doesn't even give it a tenth of justice as what it is when you actually put the VR goggles on. So within saying that, let's take a look. So I'm going to leave this a little whiteboard as we're in the hangar for the Xplane 11. This is basically where you actually spawn in, but I'll come back and we'll talk about settings a little bit later. But we'll have a quick look around, and I'll tell you what, everything's in perspective. So when you're sitting down, when you're standing up, the actual aircraft in this are the exact height. So look at the Queen of the Skies there, 747. She's an absolute beauty. So yes, I think it says Cathay Pacific, but what I might do is I might actually stand up. Yes, I can see P there, definitely Cathay Pacific, but I already knew that. I thought I'd actually just show you what it looks like if you actually stand up to show you the real size of the aircraft. But this is a spawning point that they put you in, which is really cool. It's a massive hangar. I love all the texture work there. Ooh. It was a 737, so yeah, a bit of a Boeing fan over here. But so you've got a Queen of the Skies 737 there, a couple of Cessnas in the corner, Tug, and not sure what that one is. I should know because I'm a massive fan of GA. But anyways, I thought I would show you around, and we'll come back to the whiteboard and I'll show you my settings and how to configure a flight. But I'll just wave my hands there. So I'm actually using the sensors today. So let's take a look at the whiteboard. So the whiteboard is pretty much the UI interface for VR for Xplane 11. So if anybody wants to know what settings I'm using, that's what I used for this current flight. But still not ready there, still got some jitters. But as you can see, there's already a flight preloaded in, because I was pretty much just sort of playing around, taxiing around, and see if I could actually get my settings to work. Because the main thing that you want to do, because this is not fully optimized yet, is to make sure you don't have any jitters, or we would say stutters, in the flight sim world. So as you can see, you can go in there and you can change your aircraft, you can change your time, you can do your weather. We're going to start this new flight as you would do with any other flight sim. So welcome to Melbourne Telemarine, YMML. We are sitting next to a A320, it looks like, but I thought I would show you the outside so you can actually see when you stand next to the aircraft, you can see its real size. But we're going to teleport over there to have a look around, and this is what you can actually use to get around on the outside of the aircraft for you, part of looking at your different views. So obviously the paint job on the A320 looks absolutely awful because I've got the settings turned down as I'm getting used to it all. So you can see the Cessna over there. There's a Scare Canada flight there. Apologies for any Canadians. And we'll just shoot back over to our Cessna. And when you teleport over, you have to pick your direction that you want to be, and that's what I'm sort of still learning at this stage. We'll jump over to the back of the 172 in a sec, but I do want to highlight, when you're standing next to these aircraft, they are full life size when you got the VR on. So when I was over that Airbus, it looked absolutely mammoth when I was actually standing next to it, so which was pretty cool. But we'll jump into the cockpit by using this little button here. And I do apologize for all the jitters and the stutters that are going on there as we're taking a look at the Airbus. It just means on this particular flight I thought I had my settings correct for VR. It just means the frame rates aren't high enough. So as you can see, I'm using the yoke there. So we'll jump into the menu. I do apologize because when I've got the headset on, I can see everything, but obviously when it records, it's cutting off the bottom a little bit. But first option is the flight config, so you can configure your flight just as you would do in Xplane normally. You've got your pause option. The part you can't see is your replay mode, which we'll check that out. Different views, so a ride along. We'll hit that there. So it puts you in the ride along. You can move your head around. Also, I can actually turn the camera as around. So you do all this menu changing and things like that through the actual sensor controllers. So I'm wondering if I can actually get some good montages using this sort of stuff. We shall see. I'll jump back in the cockpit there. And so that was views and advanced menu. So you can bring up basically the whole sort of menu, plugins and whatnot for Xplane 11. So it's pretty simple, different to get used to. Obviously you can just use the mouse and you can go up the top there, but where this you actually have to pull this out. So it's interesting. The other thing with the sensor, which I'll try to do, you can actually change the different, we'll get this right in a second, plug back in. You can actually use it to control different aspects of the cockpit. So I'm going to change the heading bug here by turning right and left so you can actually see it there. I apologize, that's the actual boundaries that I've got set up for VR, which I need to extend. So so we'll just play around with the throttle and the mixture. But I will say this, put up 20,000 revs. It is, and I would recommend to make sure you got some sort of joystick yoke, trim wheel and throttle quadrant. It will make it a lot easier for your VR experience at this stage. Hopefully they Xplane will actually give the ability to use a mouse, and it will make things a little bit easier to use to manage. Some of those buttons underneath the yoke I can't touch, so, or I can't get the controller over there, so I will have to just changing the heading bug again. I will have to manage them by preset buttons on my controllers anyway. You see, it was hard getting to the flaps here because I kept hitting the controller on the computer bench, so made things quite interesting. So that's how you can utilize the sensor controller in the cockpit. One thing I've done a couple of times is I'll just pan over once I finish playing with the yoke to the seat there. It's so realistic. I've gone to put the sensor on the seat when I'm flying a couple of times and I've dropped it on the floor. So absolute gives you a bit of a fright though. So that's how realistic this thing plays around with your mind. So it's really cool. So we've been saying that, I think it's time to get going. So when you set up your Oculus Rift, it actually asks you for your height. So even though I'm sitting in a chair, if I was actually sitting in Cessna 172, when I'm looking in the window, that's what I would have to do, because I'm very, very tall, so I would actually have to duck my head. So it's really realistic. I do apologize again for all the stutters. On the flight it actually didn't seem that bad. On recording it was a little bit worse, so I will make sure in future VR recordings that we'll try to knock out these stutters. But I'm going to taxi down to the runway. We'll take off. We'll do a quick pattern and landing and just give you guys a bit of a glimpse of what VR is like in Xplane. Just going back and watching the replay, my head was like a headless chicken. Absolutely must have been looking around in every direction, taking it all in. But I will say this, like visually, you can actually see quite far into the distance. It's not a strain on your eyes. You do, sitting out of the cockpit, you can see everything that you need to see. There's nothing blocking your way, and it was a very easy taxi. I know I'm looking around a little bit, but I reckon this would actually make, I'm not the best for taxiing and keeping it on the line, but I reckon going down the track this would actually be easier to taxi. So with been saying that, I'm going to shut up now so you guys can enjoy the takeoff, and I'll come back to you just after we take off. Wow, that is insane. You really get the sense that you're actually flying. I sort of got the woos in the tummy as we were taking off, and I'm looking at the ground. Absolutely insane. This thing does justice for VR when you're recording. So obviously had issues taking the aircraft off. She wouldn't lift off to 80 knots, so that's because I didn't have the trim wheel set. I forgot that. But we're going to gain some altitude. We'll make a left-hand turn, do a left-hand pattern. But I will say this, so with VR, this is not optimized, that's why I'm getting the jitters. So I need to turn some things down in the settings, and it's different than when you're doing flight sim, when you're looking at a screen, because you want to maximize and have the best quality of graphics that you can. But with VR, it's all about the flying experience. Like, I'm not really looking out, like I'm looking out, but I'm paying attention to my instruments. I actually think I'm sitting in the seat there. There's no way I can make angles and views just like that and looking for the runway that you can do on a normal hat switch in Flight Simulator. So yes, they'll optimize as it gets better and better, but yes, the airport doesn't look as normally as it would in my normal Xplane sim, but it's all about the experience, and it really feels like that you're in the air. So we'll take this up just above 1,000 feet. We're nearly there now, and we'll go on our downward leg and make a left-hand turn into a landing. So one thing I'm actually having a look there is actually the distance. The view of distance is actually really good and easy to see. I don't have to squint, which is pretty cool. So I do hear on other platforms or using other with VR, like Fly Inside and stuff, it's a bit the distance is a little bit hard to see. It's actually a better view using the native VR beta for Xplane, which is really cool. So stutters are sort of coming back, or the judders, I think it's the trees, so I'll definitely change those settings down, so apologies for the quality of video, but I really wanted to take you guys along for the first experience with me. So we're just about upon our base leg, so we'll slow down and make a left-hand turn, but as you can see, it drops away here, and it actually does at this airport in real life, so I've been there, and VR really gives you that immersion sense of there's hills and mountains and valleys and all that sort of stuff. So just like it does in real life, just the immersion factor of VR is, oh, it's insane, absolutely insane. So I'm using the Oculus Rift. Far as I understand, that the Xplane 11 native beta for VR works with the HTC Vive as well. I chose to go for the Rift, just all the homework I did. I thought it was the best product for me, but I think the Vive is a little bit cheaper. But now I get a real understanding when people actually say, when you're flying aircraft and actually you got a top wing opposed from low wing, when you're turning or whatnot, the pros and cons between visibility when you're looking out the window. So obviously when you're banking, I can't see the airport at all, as I can see just basically the ground underneath me, which is quite interesting when you're making these turns. So yeah. So the runway is in sight. We've just turned on final. I've just worked out I'm very low, but that's alright. We will make do. So I will shut up now and you guys enjoy the landing, and then once we land we'll try to work out how to do the replay and some outside views of the landing. We'll see how that works out. So I'll talk to you soon. That landing was really interesting as I now try to actually line up on the center line. So it really puts in perspective when you've got to look down at the end of the runway to do your landing and not look at the instruments. Just, you know, you've got to look at the landing and get that end of the runway, I should say, to get that smooth landing. It really helps you out by actually doing that with a VR headset. So I really hope you guys enjoyed that. Apologies again for all the raw footage and all the stuttering or the juddering, but really hope that gives you a bit of a feel for what VR is like. And I will emphasize one more time, it does not give you justice, the recording. It is absolutely insane, the feeling with VR, and I would have to say this is the #1 best thing I've ever done with gaming and flight sim ever, was a VR headset. So the experience is sensational. So we're going to pull off the runway here and pretty much travel all the way down it, and we'll work out actually how to do a replay in a second. So I'm going to find my trusty sensor control. It's always interesting, you remember when you're in a flight where you actually put the control on the bench to try to find it with your headset on, which is always interesting. So I haven't used the replay mode, this is the first for me, so trying to figure out fast forward or going back. I had a little bit of trouble, but once I worked it out, it was pretty easy. It's really straightforward, so we'll speed it back a little bit. But I'll just I'll cut to the starting off point so you don't have to see the whole rewind. So the replay option is a lot less painless than what I actually made it out to be. So I thought it would be interesting actually sitting out of the aircraft to see if you actually felt sort of woozy with a VR headset, but no, it was actually really good. You can see the iPad floating in the engine bay there. That's the iPad you can bring up a map, so there's a bit of an issue with a bug there, but everything sort of worked quite seamless. And we just dropped the Cessna, or dropped me into the ground there, so obviously on the outside view it makes it a bit hard, but all in all replay works quite well. The whole menu system on the controller is really easy, and it's easy to understand, so I can read all the words, so which makes everything really helpful. So I'm off to find a parking spot. Thank you very much for coming along and on my first full flight in VR. So hopefully you enjoyed the experience as much as I did. I'm not going to show the whole taxi because it will be a long one. So thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, please help me out and give that thumbs up. And if you're new to the Oz Flight Sim channel, please hit the subscribe button. You can see all the weekly content of videos coming out, and why not even go and have a look at some of the other videos and you see what the Oz Flight Sim channel is about. So thanks very much for watching again. I'll see you on the next video. Cheers, have a good day.